welcome. My name is Kelly Anderson, and this is Fanimated, an animation fan podcast where we get a chance to geek out about our favorite animated media. Today, Nathan Knobloch is joining me to discuss Emara, Emirates Hero, an animated short produced by Eating Star Studio. If you have yet to watch Emara, I highly recommend doing so over on YouTube. The link is in the episode description, because we are about to get into some spoiler territory. Now, let's get started and let's get animated. Nathan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Kelly. Thanks for having me on again.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. You're my go-to superhero fandom person. So when I've got this really cool superhero to talk about, I had to call you up.
Oh, well, thanks for thinking of me. I love superheroes, so this is a great fit, like always.
Yes, and today we are talking about Emara, and this is a short series you can find on YouTube, and there is an English dub available, and it is about Emara, the superhero of the United Emirates, and she is, well, her defining feature is that her powers come from her robotic arms, which turn into all sorts of crazy things like grappling hooks and guns and blasters and all sorts of things. And she, of course, has her own secret identity and all the superhero things. And I just wanted to talk about it because A, I think the concept is really cool and I want everyone to know that it exists. B, it is on YouTube for free, so there's no excuses. And C, like, I mean, we talk a lot about a lot of, US shows and, anime, Japan, but like there's so many good animated shows and, animators out there all over the world making really cool things. And this is one of them. So, I just wanted to highlight it and I think it's cool.
Yeah, it was really great that you kind of pointed this out to me. You're like, hey, we specifically want you to come in and let's talk about this random show from the UAE. And so I binged it in a day. It's very short. There's only 5 episodes. Each of them is under 10 minutes. So you can get through the whole thing in about 40 minutes. So if you want to stop this podcast and go watch it right now, you probably have the time.
Yes.
But it tells a really unique story. It's a crazy, actiony, nonstop story about this young girl and this sort of crazy society that she's in with all of these bionics, which I don't know, like, are they common? A lot of people in the story have cyborg parts, but they don't explain everything.
They don't have time to explain the whole thing. And there's clearly some like pretty crazy backstory stuff going on that they never got the chance to explain. But yeah, Emara has her robotic arms. Her self-proclaimed sidekick, Dabian, or everyone pronounces it differently. He has robotic legs, which I think is a super awesome concept that his a civilian identity, he actually is like disabled in a wheelchair. And then when he's a superhero, he uses his robotic legs, which I think is super cool. And then at the end, you find that one of the people chasing Emara is also a cyborg and a cyborg hand. So there's something going on that we don't know about. And I feel like it's one of those things that like there's some sort of person or society or something that's like doing this to all these people. Like they're all connected somehow. I feel like it's not a world in which people just randomly have robotic limbs all the time.
Right. I think she was very scared to use her limbs in the first episode. outside of being Amara. And so, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think they're trying to keep things secret and under wraps, which is interesting. But yeah, so this like show is like very short, put together. It feels very much like a crowdfunding um
Mm-hmm.
idea. And I don't know that much about the studio that made it, Eating Stars Studio, but it sounds like maybe they got a decent amount of crowdfunding and then set up this 5 episode short with bigger plans in mind. But this is all that came out of it, and
Mm-hmm.
so it is a bit rough. It's getting used to it initially is kind of strange because the dubbing is a little awkward, and we were talking about like in the Spider-Man episode about shooting on like ones versus twos, and this is shot like much lower frame rate than that. So there's
Oh yeah.
like,
Oh yeah. Very much.
but they do a good job of like making it feel still like cohesive through it, even if at some points it is a little slideshowy. I guess what I want to kind of point out to it at the beginning before anyone gets super deep into it is like this show though like does just enough, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you come away with it will be like, well, that was rough, but it was still good. Like they did just enough to get what they wanted by. I think um, Hank Green has a wonderful comparison of like, you're never going to get something 100% done. The best you're ever going to do is like 95%. And you're going to have to hit this like window. And so they're hitting like that window of like getting just enough of it, which is like
Yeah.
strange to like watch through it. And watching through it at the first time, I was like, well, this is kind of rough and weird, and I don't really know what I'll talk about. And then when I kept thinking about it for doing this episode, I just kept having more and more questions about everything that was going on, and kept coming up with like weird fan theories of like why Dabian is like working for the suits and like creating a backstory for him in my mind. And I was like, oh, well, they didn't tell me any of this, but they told me just enough for me to think about all of this. And so I
Yes.
kept coming across all of these moments where it was like, well, they told me just enough that I'm like just making up stories in my head along with it, like fill in these gaps, which was
Yes.
really fun. And maybe we can discuss some of them later on in the episode.
Absolutely. I want to hear them all. Yeah, like in that way, it feels and the fact that they're superheroes, like a superhero partnership, like it feels a little miraculous ladybug because it's like this very they've got this setup and then it's really just like you can fill in all the gaps yourself. And not necessarily in a bad way, just like for this specific example, like they clearly didn't have the budget or time to fully delve into everything they wanted to. They just kind of gave us a little taste, a little snippet of what was in their minds. And it really is enough to, animation wise, it's enough to really, communicate what they're trying to communicate visually. And then story wise, completely enough to make you think about this whole world that they live in and what's going on and the underlying like what are all their motives, like it really it's only 40 minutes of content, but it's plenty to bounce off of. And I should say, just from the beginning, the show is created by, I try my best with pronunciations, so we'll see how this goes. Fatima Al Mahari, and she is a UAE based artist, and then a group of artists and animators from various different Arab countries. And it took them about a year and a half to complete. And they released it on television during Ramadan a couple or 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And then they released it on YouTube. So now we can all watch it. So obviously it didn't take that long. It's not a huge group of people, and I think they did a really good job with what they had. I mean, they even have like a lot of different characters in it.
For the synopsis, in the initial opening scenes, you get introduced to Amara, the main character, who's a young girl with robotic arms blasting through, chasing down very stereotypically looking bank robbers with ski masks on and cartoony cars with them all shoved into them. And it's wonderful, just sort of like old school reminiscence of cops and robbers type of deal.
It's like classic Saturday morning cartoon
Yeah,
shenanigans, you
it
know?
starts out very classic cartoons like that, and Amara is a very unique hero. She has a hijab that she's wearing, a headscarf, and then she has like these big like orange glasses as well
Yes.
that are like kind of like a visor almost. And so she's blasting off and beating up these bad guys, and then gets like a call on her phone for like work, and she's like, "Oh crap, I'm late," and so she has to go back, and she helps out her mom at their sort of touristy coffee shop. And
Hmm.
so she, in the not Amara, her real name is Moza, and she is a just a waitress at her mom's coffee shop, and she's an absolute klutz. So
Which is another reason it makes me think of Miraculous Ladybug, because in Miraculous Ladybug, Marinette is such a klutz, but then when she's the superhero, she's like super, super awesome. So I'm like, oh, this is like, anyway, it just makes me think of Marinette. So Moza makes me think of Marinette, and she's cute and fun.
right. And so then she's helping out, she's spilling coffee, and then she gets a call of like, come save the city type idea on her phone. And I'm like, who's contacting her? What is happening here? And she has to rush off and give her mom an excuse and go beat up a group of bad guys where they have her trapped because there's like a bounty on her head. Who put the bounty on her head? No one knows. It's never really explained.
It's like they do mention a bad guy, and they're like, "Is it this guy?" And he's after some. I have no idea.
Yeah. But essentially she's getting trapped by all these bad people, and then Dabian comes flying in and in his full kind of traditional style robes and his like rocket boot progelled legs and kicks
Yes.
everyone in the face and saves her and is like, "Are we partners now?" And Mara's just like, "No, we're not partners." And then he's like, "Sparkle, yes, we're partners." And she's like so mad at him.
I love it so much. I love it. Oh, their banter is so good. I just like it's just enough. Like we said, it's just enough to make
It's
me just love them so much.
Yeah, it's wonderful. But then right after that, you see Dabian meeting with two people that are just sort of referred to as the Suits, and it's this sort of evil corporation that's trying to like capture Amara and for the bounty for her robotic arms for nefarious purposes. We don't really know their
We don't
motivations,
know.
but they're like this endless like corporate entity of people in suits.
Yeah. And I always think that maybe they have good intentions. Like maybe they aren't after the bounty, maybe they're trying to help her, or because there's something up. So,
Yeah, well, we'll get to
yeah,
fan
we'll get
theories,
to that.
but that's essentially the first episode. It is the longest one, and a lot happens, but it's really just setting stuff up. Keep moving with it. Dabian actually comes to the coffee shop because he's kind of identified who Moza is and is trying to keep her identity a secret from the suits a little bit. So he kind of like goes over to investigate more and ends up getting roped in by Moza's mom to start working at the coffee shop, even though he's in a wheelchair, like Kelly mentioned before. And then
Mhm.
eventually the coffee shop gets attacked by robbers, and neither of them can like defend the coffee shop without like giving up their identity. And so they end up having to like solve the problem as like regular people and like call the police and like kind of like corner the bad guy and save the day in a little bit of a different way.
Yes. And you know, we should mention too that Moza's uncle is like one of the cops. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting dynamic right there.
Oh, what other superheroes have ever had uncles that are cops?
I
Oh,
wonder.
I don't know. Let me think of this 80. But no, so
Yeah.
Uncle Jassim is Moses' uncle, and I think he's the brother of her dad, and her dad is gone. Her dad is missing from the picture for whatever reason, unexplained. But Uncle Jassim is one of my favorite characters because he's essentially just like the anime mustached man.
Yes.
Where
He's Major Armstrong,
yeah, he's
basically.
Major Armstrong. He's who else? He's Alex from from Seven Deadly Sins. The last
Oh
guy
yeah.
that I keep thinking of. He's just muscles and mustache and
Yeah.
the character, which is wonderful.
Oh, it's so good.
But he comes in and kind of saves the day, which is wonderful. And then to continue with the next episode, Dobby won't turn in Amara to the suits and is just like,
Hmm.
I don't know who she is. He's like starting to lie. Like he doesn't trust the suits at all. He thinks that Amara's a good person and that she's doing good work and that whatever the suits want her for, like isn't aligned with it. Which is like why I feel like the suits are evil. Like
Hmm.
if they were really like for good intentions, like I don't think that Davion would mistrust them. But um, the most of this episode is actually just like a big car chase with Uncle Jassim.
Yes. Oh, like yeah, these robbers especially. It's just, I mean, the way they really do all like clown into a car and like they're pretty crazy and the money's everywhere. It's great.
It is wonderful. But Amar comes in and saves the day at the end. And when the episode is ending, though, she ends up meeting. She had been looking for the person who had put out the warrant, like on her, and so she ends up meeting this person in like an empty like mall parking garage, and it's like this
It's creepy.
guy with like a bag over his head that kind of looks like a dog, and he ends up uh, like hitting her with like a tranquilizer dart and like taking her away at the very end of this episode. Um, he's super creepy. I think he's Solomon. They mention like there's a big bad guy named Solomon,
Solomon.
but they
Yeah.
never like address like, oh, that guy's Solomon. I'm just kind of assuming that he's Solomon.
Or at least a Goonie for Solomon.
Yeah, who even knows? Solomon is just sort of like this like figurative like, oh, he's the one that put the bounty on your head. He's the big bad guy. Um,
Yeah.
but who knows?
Who knows? We don't know.
And then I'm gonna say at this point, the show really takes a turn.
It's a turn. It's like we've established this fun cartoony thing that's happening, superheroes, woohoo, and now it's science fiction, like horror, suspense. What's happening? Emara somehow has been like manipulated and hypnotized in some way. They've got this like head thing that's like I don't know, controlling her basically, but she's got these other arms like coming out of her back, and it's like the most terrifying thing. And Mara has turned into like this monster, and you're like, this is so freaky. Like Davion goes in, for the suits to like get her, and it's so crazy. There's this battle between them, and like Davion does not fare well,
Nope.
not at all, and Emara, he's able to get the, device off of her, and Emara is like totally just like confused and doesn't know what's going on and is like horrified that she hurt him and all of that. And so, she runs away. And they mentioned too, before Dabian goes in and the suits are like, don't let her reach the top floor. Like whatever that means. Like
I
there's
have in
something.
all caps in my notes, Kelly. What's on the top floor? What is it? What is it, Kelly?
I don't know. It's something.
What's on the top floor?
Maybe it's the truth behind everything.
The truth. The truth is on the top floor. Maybe.
The door of truth from Full Metal Alchemist.
If you can't tell, we're trying to compare this show to a lot of other shows because we like fundamentally like don't really understand it because we've never seen a show like this before because we're always
Yeah.
used to consuming so much like Western media or like Japanese media, and like those all have like very easily identifiable tropes a lot of the time. And so
Yeah.
now we're like, what do we do with this like huge turn and this young girl who is got robot arms?
Robot arms. And now in deluxe size coming out of your back. And they make it look freaky. Like they
Like
make
her
her
eyes.
look scary.
So
Oh
you're
my
used to
goodness.
having her like these really like bright round eyes behind these very circular orange visors, and then like the headpiece that she has on turns her eyes to like these white dots, and so they're just like those like
Ugh.
blinding headlights. And then the
Yes.
whole atmosphere is like super like crumbly office building and super dark, and it's like everything before was like bright orange and bright pink, and now it's just like all grays and all like
Ugh.
dark navy blues, and you're just like, I guess, flex that skill if you got it.
Yeah. It's so good. And so of course Amara runs away. And the last episode, it's like they saved all of their it's like they started with the last episode and spent all of their time on the last episode, and then they were like, "Oh wait, we need to animate the rest of the show."
Well, what was it so interesting about me for like the last episode is that there's so little talking, because the last episode is entirely just a giant fight. Like they're
Yes.
one of the suits, I think it's
Ali.
Ali,
Yeah.
gets possessed by the Solomon character and is turned into an absolute giant cyborg with like four arms and a giant mouth, and is trying to just like eat everybody for some reason.
He looks like a Studio Ghibli monster.
Hmm.
Like that's what it reminded me of. Like something from, Nausicaa with like the giant warrior or something.
Yeah, and so I think they focused, yeah, like you said, they focused a lot on this, and the whole time it's raining too, which I didn't like. I was like,
Yeah.
this is so hard to animate. The whole thing is raining and yelling, and everything's exploding, and oh my
Everything is
god,
floating all the time. It's
what are
great.
they doing? But like the fight pretty much just goes like, yeah, Dabian and Amara are just like no match for this giant beast, and they like both end up getting eaten. But then Amara at the last minute just like blows out the side of Ali with her rocket arms, and I'm like, this was supposed to be like a young girl, like you kept like relating her to like the ladybug
Mm-hmm.
Marissette, and I'm like, oh, that's just like a little like fluffy kid show thing, and like, no, this is so like Amara has guns.
She has some major ammunition power.
Ali is defeated, and Amara is knocked out, and Davion has one leg, and eventually the main suit lady shows up and
Mm-hmm.
collects Amara and like is about to walk off, and Davion like shoots her in the back, the the suit lady with his leg that has turned into like a rifle. And I'm like, what happened? And then and then the boss lady just like turns around and is like, "You didn't want to do that," and her hand turns into a gun.
It's like the whole time she had a robot hand too. What?
So you have four people that are cyborgs at this point, but then at the
Uh,
very end, they're just like pointed at each other, like huge standoff, and then the screen goes black, and there's a gunshot,
and that's it.
and that's
That's
it.
it. That's the whole show. You get that cliffhanger. That's it.
What? Who shot? Who? What happened? I'm like trying to do like audio analysis of like Damian's gun sounded like this, but Amara sounded like this, but we have no idea. Like, I
We don't know what happens.
don't know. There's so many questions.
Oh man. Oh, so many questions. So many questions. So what's your first question besides like what happened at the end?
Oh, what happened? There's like so many weird things around the cyborgs. Like, how did they get here? I already answered like, are cyborgs common? Like, essentially, we have like four out of our six main characters that are cyborgs. Like, it
Yeah.
seems like so focused, but then in in the like I'm piecing things together, like in the opening sequence is there's like a lab escape, and so I'm like, is Mara like a weird like lab experiment and she escaped, or like why did they is that why they want Amara back? Is there like a huge connection? I think her dad has a big connection, and I think her dad was silenced because of it, but now they're like trying to search for like her dad was like she was her dad's experiment kind of thing, like a rocket boy kind of astro
Yeah.
like story arc. And so I'm like piecing together like all these like ideas and like portions and backstories of things. to try to answer these questions?
I definitely think her dad was involved somehow. I mean, it's done so much, like it just seems so obvious that, her dad's not involved, and she, I don't know, someone, I mean, maybe, yeah, someone's got to have given her the robot arms to begin with. Like, what's going on? And also, we don't know why she even became a vigilante superhero person to begin with. So there's got to be a story there. I don't know. I personally, going back to the suits, like I personally always was thinking that they actually had good intentions. Like maybe because like they're a whole like big group of people, like, and I feel like, well, I suppose they could be like, oh, we need this experiment back or whatever. But I
Hmm.
guess I always figured maybe they were like, we have to keep her safe from Solomon or something. And like, as if Davion just doesn't know all the pieces. Because there's a point too where the suit lady was like, it's not like you to, be asking questions to Davion, like as if he probably doesn't know the whole story. Of what they're doing. And so maybe he's just assuming something bad's going to happen.
Maybe. So here's my like made up backstory for Davion though, which then paints the suits in a much different light. So I think the suits are a big like research corporation into like cybernetics, and I think Davion was born unable to use his legs and had always been in a wheelchair. And the suits came with an offer of, hey, we'll give you these robot legs, but then you have to work for us. And he was like, oh,
Hmm.
yeah, sweet. Of course. I want those legs. And so
Yeah.
he had to maintain his like previous identity of not being able to walk. Because like if you could walk, why would he just like jump out of his wheelchair? He had to maintain from some sort of
Mm.
previous life that he was still
Right.
wheelchair bound. Um,
Yeah.
and so then he's like just sort of this like, undercover like worker, doesn't really bother on anything until he meets Amara and then realizes like these people are actually after her for something. Like I'm gonna start asking questions. I don't want them to hurt her. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're like using Dabion, and so like I don't like that. Like my whole backstory is then like Amara's dad is high tech developer for suits. They have a technological disagreement. The suits want to use like Amara. He doesn't. He saves her, but like dies in the process or something. And like
Uh-huh.
that's what's on the top floor is like his research lab of like where Amara was like built slash born. And everyone wants to get there because that's like where whatever the secret cybernetic tech truth is. And so like
Mm.
I'm just continually thinking about this and continuing to like make up these stories around it. And so that's why I'm so like this show is like it did just enough for you to continue to think and build around it.
Yes, there's like so much to think about and like to analyze. And, I mean, the opening and the ending are both like good places to look. And I hadn't thought about the fact that Dabion like still is in a wheelchair. I think that's a good um, support for your theory because yeah, why wouldn't he get out of the wheelchair if it's not some other big secret about you know how he can walk? Which is another reason why I don't think robot limbs are common because you know.
Yeah, because they're maintaining these covers.
Hmm.
So
I have another question. At the end of the episodes, there during the end credits, there's like Emara holding this little ball of light is like an image. Do you have any ideas on that?
oh boy, I probably skipped it. Why would she be holding? Is it like an arc reactor? Like is she Iron Man?
I don't think so. I mean, it just looks like a little ball of light, and I don't know how to describe it.
I don't know. Animate animation endings and anime endings usually never make sense.
It's true. It could be a metaphor for all we know. It could be just. Oh dear. Regardless, there's lots to think about here, lots to delve into and theorize about. And it's the reason why I want to talk about this because it's been a couple years and I am still thinking about this show. So I needed to drag you all into it too now, and we can all suffer together not knowing what happens.
Yeah, that is the
Uh,
worst.
yeah. Yep. Well, normally I do some research and tell you all about the animation production, but what I said earlier is all I know because I do not speak Arabic. And that's the only way to find out information about this show. So if anyone else has information or theories, headcanons about what happens, does Davion get shot at the end? What happens? I don't know. Let us know at fanmatedpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at fanmatedpodcast. So let us know. Go watch it and let us know. Because we have a little extra time and because usually I'd be releasing a What You Watching right now, Nathan, what have you been watching recently?
All right, so to the viewers, to the listeners, we kind of prepared a little bit of this, but I started watching the new. Is it a fall anime? I guess technically now.
Yes, a fall.
Um, the new fall anime, Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yes.
It is so absolutely bonkers.
It's wild.
It's so wild. Kelly, why what is this show? Why do you keep getting me hooked on all these like newly occurring shows that I have to wait entire weeks for episodes to come out and I can't just like binge a whole season and be like, "Oh, that was nice and fun and easy." No, I have to watch the wildest shows possible with no end in sight.
You're welcome. I'm just here to make everyone suffer along with me. Oh man, Jujutsu Kaisen is a beautifully animated series show about this kid who basically eats part of a demon. And
it's it's like yes, technically.
and he becomes, part of this group of people that are fighting the curses they're called, that are like demons, and he's like, of course, the chosen special one because he is able to eat this very special, demon guy parts and not die immediately.
He eats their fingers. There's cursed fingers in the world, and he can eat them. And there's 20 of them because the curse has 4 arms.
Yep.
Nothing about this show makes sense, Kelly.
That's okay. It's your typical like shonen battle anime fare, and it's fantastic. And all of these, I just keep comparing it to Demon Slayer. So all these Demon Slayers have like their own like abilities, and like this one kid like has all these animal friends and animal curse friends, and then this gal just like hammers nails into curses like a boss, and it's great. And then our main guy is just eating fingers.
When you say he's eating fingers, it sounds like you're talking about like chicken fingers.
Yeah, he's just going to McDonald's for some chicken nuggets with some extra curses on the side.
but why I keep saying that this show is absolutely just crazy is not only like the plot and the establishing like incident is absolutely bonkers. The main character, I didn't write any of their names down, but I think it's like Edoria. He's so dumb. He's like just absolutely dumb.
He's so dumb.
Like he He's so dumb.
He makes me feel like he reminds me of like Natsu. Like he's your typical Natsu character.
You just think he's Natsu because their hair is both pink.
Okay, well, yes. Yeah, that definitely helps. But they're also both just kind of like, oh.
But yeah, so essentially after he's eaten these fingers, he like shifts in. He's like possessed by like the cursed spirit of like Sukanum or something. That Sukara.
I don't know any of their names. It's only been like 5 episodes.
Well, we're talking about a show that we've only watched 5 episodes of, and I just finished the 5th episode before we recorded this. But yeah, the curse, and so he's like shifting between these like 2 characters, and so like
Yes.
the cursed demon is like opening up like multiple eyes on his face and like multiple mouths and like all these like really like tribalistic looking tattoos, and then like suddenly like the dumbest human you've ever met just like takes over and is like, oh, that was weird. And you're like, what?
It's like, how is this kid the kid that's able to like control this curse, you know? Like, what?
Exactly. But they've like established like early on that he's like the strongest high schooler to ever exist because he's like breaking the world record in the track and field events, and is like,
yes,
team captain is like, you need to like compete, and he's like, nah, I just want to go like hang out with my grandpa who's dying. And so he like ends up like on this huge quest of like fulfilling his grandpa's dying wish of like for him to be a hero, but he like doesn't understand what that means at all. And so he's like trying to save his friends and just eats fingers, and then is now going to this school for these jujitsu sorcerers, and everything is wild and wacky, and then he dies.
And then he dies, everybody. Spoiler alert. First 5 episodes.
He literally swaps into his cursed form to defeat a special level curse, and then can't switch back, so the cursed form rips his own heart out so that when they swap back he'll die. And so then in order to like save his new best friend Fukushima, who's like the guy with the spirit animals, Fukushima, he like at the last minute like regains control and switches back, and then like dies in front of his new friend. And like,
Yep.
oh, it was like really sad, and we were only 5 episodes in.
I know. But, you know, I mean, we've been through Attack on Titan. We've seen what happens. He's not dead.
Yeah, he's not dead. He's possessed by an ancient evil spirit. And the main character, he's the dumb chosen one.
He's the dumb chosen one. Oh man, I mean, it's just all things great shonen battle anime, and fantastic animation by Mappa, who just keeps surprising me at every turn, and makes me even more excited for Attack on Titan season 4, because they're just killing it with this show. So I'm sure they're gonna be amazing with Attack on Titan. So yeah, I recommend it if you guys want to suffer along with us and be stuck watching one episode at a time.
All right, though. Can we talk about that outro, though?
The best outro.
Scene and the amazing like blocky color animation. I am absolutely in love with it. It is so beautiful and amazing. Yes. And it is a completely different tone than the whole rest of the anime.
Oh my gosh, it's my favorite thing. It's like, it's so colorful and bright, and like, yeah, they're all like dancing, and like, it's so fun and beautiful, and it's like, this is not, what am I watching? Like,
and then it flashes back to like the next episode, and it's just like all demons and curses and dark. And I'm like, what is happening? Why?
You can't show me a picture of this girl eating sweets and then show me like this like decaying, rotting like curse that's about to... What is this show? Oh man.
Top 10, top 5, top 3. It's amazing.
Wow, top 3. Wow, impressive. It's definitely up there. So yeah, everyone go watch Jujutsu Kaisen after you watch Emara. Great.
Do you have any other shows, Kelly, that you want to bring up?
Well, I could talk about how I'm rewatching Snow White with the red hair.
That's saving you through these trying times.
Yes, guys, it's my comfort food anime. I love it so much. It has everything you could ever want. Okay, it's this fantasy adventure, the most perfect romantic couple ever that are like super progressive and awesome. You've got like just a hint of a love triangle that's not too much to make you nervous about it, but just enough to give other people hope. And then like the my favorite like nerd boy addition who is just the cutest like 12-year-old kid who's just like so adorable in every scene he's in. I can't handle it.
Not to put you on the spot, but does he have a dad?
No. If he did, I'd probably already have like broken down. But it's true, he's your basic Varian hiccup character, except in anime form. And instead of being an inventor or an alchemist, he's an what do they call it? They call it different things in the anime and the manga. A pharmacist, basically. He's the youngest court herbalist ever, or whatever, you know?
Sure.
And everyone is afraid of him because he studies poisons, and so everyone's like, I'm not taking medicine from you.
But half of poison is the remedy, right?
Right. Exactly. Oh man, it's just a lighthearted, joyful show that's like truly the most wholehearted thing in existence. It's just like wholesome and beautiful, and like it's like there's enough stakes to keep you interested, but not enough that you're like nervous about it, like Jujutsu Kaisen.
No one's gonna get killed by a cursed item.
No one's gonna die. Everything's fine. And it's just like, you know, it's just these characters, and they're all so wonderful, and they all are building relationships with each other, and it's so sweet and perfect. And it's the first anime that ever got me hooked on reading manga. And so I've read through this entire manga, and I keep up with it. Like, it's still coming out. And it's beautiful and perfect in every way. So highly recommend.
Yeah, you can go watch that on all your streamings, or you can just follow Kelly at Fanimated Podcast, and you'll get enough of a story arc through the Instagram stories that you can follow along.
Yep, I'm just putting on Instagram stories, like, whenever I watch it, I'm like, here we go. More Snow White, because I can't handle the world. Oh, it's so good, guys. And you can watch me react to it at least, or at least the best. It's funny too, guys. It's hilarious. This show is so great. It's so funny. Oh man, I could go on, but it would turn into a Snow White episode, so we'll save that for later.
Sounds good.
Thank you for talking about Emara and Jujutsu Kaisen and Snow White with me.
Yeah, a great little mini episode of a trio of things here for people to enjoy.
Exactly. So let us know what you think. So thanks again, Nathan, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening. Remember that you can join the Fanimated crew and vote for upcoming episode topics by going to patreon.com/Fanimated. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Fanimated Podcast to stay up to date with all things animated. And don't forget to leave a rating and review telling us what you'd like us to watch next. The music is provided by Purple Planet Music, and the art is done by myself. You can find me on Instagram at CandorDraw. Thank you, Nathan, for joining me, and we'll be back next week with more international animation. So in the meantime, stay tuned and stay animated. This is, I'm just thinking, this is quite the random collection of things to watch.
Oh, people didn't know that the two of us combined had the most eclectic taste in media to ever exist. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Yep, that's us. That's us right here.